What's up, guys? It sure is hot down here. I've got something really cool to show you. Now, this may look like just a regular old replica, but I can guarantee you it is not. What it is the baddest ass BB machine gun on the planet. And the reason for that is it's a 5K build. Now, I've been really hesitant of putting 5K in Blackbirds and replicas. I knew it would work. I've done it on mine and maybe a couple others that are out there in the wild. But I was really hoping to reserve it for Freebird. That, and a long time ago when we first worked it out, one of the problems we had was power. The eFest IMR 700 milliamp 14500s just didn't really have the amperage, or so I thought. Now, I've had a little bit of time. Things have slowed down like drastically, as they normally do for me in the summertime. And I had a chance to try out a few of the things that I'd wanted to do in the magazine to take out some friction and give it some shock absorption on the auger. And what I did was I had a bunch of silicon bronze washers that I got years ago, intending to line the clutches, and the washers turned out to be the wrong size. I managed to work one of them down and tried it out in one of mine. It works great. I mean, now what I'm normally doing, and what I've done in the past, is just put a brass washer in there. So you've got this steel plate that rubs on the brass washer. That little steel plate has three little lobes on it that kind of dig in to the washer. So it's basically a sacrificial part. Now, with it being silicone impregnated bronze, that gives excellent wear characteristics to that part, which gives us overall more consistency with what we're trying to accomplish with it. And so what I did was I found a bolt that was roughly the same size as the inner diameter of the washers. I worked it down a little bit so it was the same size as the washers. Put it through it, bolted all the washers together, and stuck it on the lathe and worked it down until I got them to the size I wanted. And for this one, it started out having a brass washer in it, but it didn't glue right. So I took that out, and that's when I had some time. I said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead, see if I can't fix these silicon bronze washers. And I did. So I replaced the brass washer in this one with the silicon bronze washer, and it's actually got a friction fit in it, and that thing ain't going anywhere, and it just fits so nice. And also on the cog, I've been using wave washers to absorb some of the shock from whenever the gun fires on the auger. And it does a couple of things. But I've been wanting to get it really slick in there, so because every time it pushes back, when it fires, there's a chance that I could stop rotating. I don't want that. So I found on, I think it was eBay, yeah, I found some thrust washers the right size to go behind the cog and the, I guess you call it a spool, whatever that thing is, it spins and it looks like a spindle. Anyway, I got to thinking about it and I'm like, well, you know what, I'm already having to remove some of the cog material to get the wave washer in there. Probably not going to have enough room to get that thrust bearing in there. And so I was looking at doing research on silicon bronze, and I said, wait a minute, back when I was doing all this, I bought another size washer that was also the wrong size washer, but it fits perfectly on that spindle. And now everything in there is slicker than owl shit. I'm telling you, man. When I tested this thing out earlier today, I got everything, put everything together, and went in the back room, put 1,000 psi on it. It burped once, it hiccuped twice, and then it cut a fart, and then it just ran like a scalded dog. I mean, yeah, all fire rates. It's amazing, and I'll be completely honest with you. I shoot these things almost every day. That one actually scared me. Alrighty, before we shoot it, I'm sure most of you guys watching this video don't really know anything about 5K. The difference between 5K and 4K, it's not just 1,000 rounds a minute. The 4K builds, let's see, they all have, try to get it to where you can see that. Let me turn this light off. Okay. Now, 4K builds and 5K builds, 1200 RPM builds, they all have, with Sergey's board, they've all got burst settings from, that indicates full auto, at 1 all the way up to 10. So you can choose like a 5-round burst if you want it. 10 round, 8, 6, whatever. And now this is your fire rate. And with the 4K builds, it goes 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and 4,000. With these, there's a bunch of fire rates. Let's see. Trying to show you this without flipping the image. So we start out at 470. That's 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, 3,500, and so on, up to 5,000 rounds a minute. It's funny, there was a lot of discussion about what that symbol should represent, what it should be, when Sergey and I were talking about this last time. Should it be an H or a K? So whatever that thing is what we ended up with. Now, where it really shines. So on top of basically making it be able to sound like almost any machine gun, this is the pulse width duration. Now on a 4K gun, believe it's 4 to 12 milliseconds. We'll see where it starts. So, as you see, it has half milliseconds. So it goes to 12 and it starts at 3. So you start a full millisecond before the 4K boards, which start at 4 milliseconds, which really comes in handy at extreme fire rates. And so do the half milliseconds. A half a millisecond when you get up there in rounds a minute makes a huge difference. And on top of that, let's see what fire rate we're on. I think we had this one set on. Okay, well, we've got 5K set on 4. Now, if it was a 4K build, your pulse rate would carry over to every fire rate. So if you set it on pulse 4, it would be on pulse 4 for 1, 2, 3, and 4K. Now with these, we've got the SPS function. So I could choose whatever. Let's say I wanted 5.5. Now let's see what it is on 470. 7.5. That's because the SPS records the pulse that you've selected for any given fire rate, which is extremely handy when you get up into the really fast fire rates and you have half millisecond increments. So we came up with the half millisecond increments first, and it's just so much to remember. This is a lot of the technology that came out of the 8K stuff. It was just so much to remember, like what fire rate likes what specific pulse. And like you need a book to carry around with you and write all this stuff down in. Well, I asked Sergey, hey, is there some way that we could make it remember a rate for each fire rate? And he's like, let me see what I can do. And so he did it, and that is awesome, especially for these higher fire rates. With 4K, it's not really a big deal because you're already up in the high fire rates. It starts out at 1,000, and I've said in the past, anything over 7 is just wasting air. Now, if you like noise, you can put it higher than 7 and it'll be louder. But when you get up into the high fire rates, you have to kind of draw your pulse back, or it interferes with the timing of everything. And you get into harmonics and all kinds of crazy stuff that you can't even look at. You just have to theorize about what's going on. So the SPS function with all these different fire rates is fantastic. On a side note, I'm sure somebody's going to ask about this table. It's handmade, wrought iron. The guy who made it lives in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. And my dad just said, make me the coolest table that you can. Here's my checkbook. So it's one of those things that somebody was given carte blanche on, and this is what he came up with. Probably the guy's most impressive piece that he will ever do. And it's one of the things that I wanted to hold on to, because stuff like that, there's only one of them. And I just have a lot of respect for things like that. And believe it or not, that gun is kind of the same thing. Now, granted, nowhere near the amount of time went into building it, but there is years of learning and all kinds of stuff behind that. And right now it's the only one. I don't know if there's going to be any more replicas. I think Rustlin, he was wanting to move towards 5K uh, with the replicas, and I explained to him, well, we might have the battery problem, but as of today, he didn't even know I was doing this, and these are not mine. They're not paid for. I pay him whenever you guys buy him, and this one is up for consideration if anybody's interested.